We saw it with Beanie Babies in the 90s. We are possibly seeing it with Labubu dolls right now. We don't know. But the point is, like, that is kind of like the base level way. That's like number one. If you're looking to buy and hold in the long term, yeah.
And we're back with another segment of Why Y'all Working with Stefan from AltsCo. I'm one of your hosts, Alairé.
I'm Michael Ogunsanya.
And Stefan, say well hi to the people.
Hey guys, good to be here.
Thanks.
Missed my cue. Sorry, bro.
It's all good. It's all good. So with that being said, let's just kind of, get into understanding, the alternative investment dynamics, navigating them, evaluating them, and then connecting with others abroad. Because as you stated in our previous segment, that AltsCo is worldwide, right? It's global. You are in Australia and Melbourne, and Wyatt is in Spain. So, I'm over here. We're all in different places. We'd love to know why non-traditional assets like tequila, farmland, film, music rights is important, number one. And number two, why do you feel it to be necessary to expose it to a lot of retail investors, not just having it open to accredited investors as well?
So first of all, I want to say that I think that the world of alternatives is not, in my mind, meant to be like a majority of one's investments. Okay, they're called alternative for a reason, and we are more than happy to keep it that way. We know this is not mainstream. I think most people basically should have a majority of their investments in equities, right? I do too, right? That is I'm no different than the mainstream when it comes to that. But when it comes to alternatives, man, there is just a world of opportunity out there. And there are some really interesting and valuable opportunities. They are starting to bubble up to the surface. We are in the business, first and foremost, of exploring those opportunities through a very neutral, unbiased lens. Due diligence is a huge part of alternative investing and a huge part of what we do. Both Wyatt and I have due diligence in our background, right? So when I was at Flippa, I started Flippa's due diligence program. I'm talking one of the biggest problems Flippa had back in the day was people were like, hey guys, great platform. How can I trust what the seller's saying? How can I trust what this business's numbers are showing? And it's well, at face value, you kind of can't, right? You've got to do the hard work, but people don't have the time to do that. They don't know how to do that. And so I basically created this program for the best businesses on the platform to dig deep and figure out what's going on with them, because every business has a story. So my job was to basically tell that story. So I created this due diligence program from scratch. And then when I started Alts, I kind of applied that same thinking and rationale and decision making to the broader world of investments. So it turns out let's say you want to buy $500,000 worth of tequila in Mexico. All right, it's where do you begin? You as a retail investor, sure, you can do that, but where do you begin, right? There's no tequilabarrels.com and you just place an order and it doesn't work like that. You got to dig in, you got to know people. And so we make the effort to really get to know the people behind the deals. We meet them in person, we meet them where they're at. Case in point, we took a trip last year to Jalisco, Mexico, brought 12 community members along with us on a giant week-long due diligence exercise to the heart of tequila country in Mexico. Why? So we could meet our dealer face to face, hang out with them for a week. So we could meet the mayor of the town. So we could meet the local distilleries, right? The ones that are behind the scenes pumping out tequila for some of the top brands in the world, white labeling them. Now we know how the liquor flows. We know how the product works. We know how the certification system works. We're good with everybody. That's how you do due diligence. It's hard work and no one wants to do it, but it is absolutely a must for the world of alternative investing. As it turns out, that's the part I love the most, right? I love diving into deals, figuring out the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. Nothing's perfect. That's okay. Our community expects that we'll do the digging, do the hard work, do the analysis, write the deal memo, and, deliver it to them in a way that's tangible, digestible, and just makes sense. And as it turns out, if you do that and you do that hard work that no one else wants to do, people start to trust what you're saying. And that's exactly the position we're in now. So we have a really high acumen, editorial acumen for the content we put out. We take it very seriously, especially in a world full of crypto scams and just basic grifters and a lot of crap out there. We stand above that. We are not overly self-promotional. We are serious about what we do, and we've got the numbers to back it up. We've basically never messed up. We don't have any bad, awful investments on our books. And I intend to keep it that way for as long as possible.
Thank you for that. And I think that, the due diligence aspect is very important, right? Like, as we all know, with any deal, whether it be music, even in the music industry, there's bad deals all over the place. Even when they were talking about doing the NFT situation with a lot of deals in that space, it was just looking at it when, like how you said, during the time of crypto, like everybody was like, yeah, crypto this, crypto that. And I'm like, why are we pegging the value of music to a cryptocurrency that could lose its value in one day? You know what I'm saying? It just didn't make sense.
That's a great question, but like, let's actually answer that question too. Let's not just be skeptical for the sake of being contrarian. Let's actually dive in, because like even with the NFT boom, right? Like there was some aspects of it that I think still have legs, and like there was so much crap, and
A lot.
It kind of ruined it for everybody in a way, because there were some very clear use cases that only now are just starting to bubble up to the surface, and like people and investors and companies are realizing, okay, like maybe there's something there. Like tokenization is the perfect example. Like
Exactly.
the tokenization is perfect for some alternative investing industries. Real estate, call it alternative, call it mainstream, whatever. Tokenization and real estate are like peanut butter and jelly, in my opinion. That's a perfect use case. I think music's up there as well. I think music investing, it lends itself very well to tokenization. I think film does as well, film investing, right? So, we're not trying to be skeptics for the sake of being skeptics. We're really trying to get to the meat and the heart of each investment. And by the way, we don't pretend to be experts in all of these asset classes. This is the thing that people don't understand. They're like, how do you go so broad? Like, how do you know everything about them? I'm like, I don't know everything about all these asset classes. What we do is we find the experts. We find the people who, are one of 10 people in the world who know how to truly value, a cash flow model or create a cash flow model for a distressed music rights investment. You can count the number of people that can do that on maybe 2 or 3 hands, right? We meet with them in person. We go to Nashville. We learn their story. We hang out with them for a week. And now when we need to do diligence and music rights deal, we have someone we can lean on, someone who can help. The same thing applies to farmland. The same thing applies to classic cars. We partner like crazy with experts. We bring them into the community. And that's what really helps our due diligence shine, right? It's this way we're not a bunch of nobodies, who just like, hey, we think this is a good deal, stamp it, right? Like, that's not like that. Like, we really, really try to bring the experts from the world into the community, and that's what we've done.
No, and I appreciate you mentioning that. And so for those unfamiliar with the space, how do these alternative assets actually generate income? Is it the same process as you just investing in a stock, or, how would you say that, any particular investment would be attractive to a buyer like yourself when you're considering that investment, especially when it comes to, I guess, going straight to the source as you did in Jalisco, Mexico, and seeing, the distributors, all do their thing before they white label and, give it out to who it needs to go to, the respective buyers. What would you say there?
There is no like alternative asset class, right? Like that's not like a thing. It's like saying like, like how do businesses make money? It's like, well, some sell pens and others like make software, right? So it's like every business is like different, right? So every alternative investment is totally different. At a high level, there's basically 2 ways to make money in alternative investing, right? One is appreciation, right? So that can be driven by scarcity. It can be like this is like the world of collectibles and that kind of stuff, right? Where it's like you're basically like it's kind of like I hate to say greater fool theory, but basically like you're counting on more and more people wanting an asset, and the demand exceeds the supply, obviously, and then the price goes up based on the demand and supply imbalance. Like that's fine. That's great. There's lots of assets that appreciate, and that's not a bad thing in the world. With that, though, you have to be very careful because you can get all sorts of bubbles, right? People that pile into an asset class because everyone else is piling into it, and there's not enough fundamental value there, and all of a sudden it just collapses. Like obviously we've seen that with NFTs. NFTs are not the only example. We saw it with Beanie Babies in the 90s. We are possibly seeing it with Labubu dolls right now. We don't know. But the point is like that is kind of like the base level way. That's like number one. If you're looking to buy and hold in the long term, yeah, the general law of investing, it will appreciate to some degree and the value will be higher later, just based on population, based on the time value of money, based on scarcity, based on all sorts of things. That's number one. Number two is cash flow, yield, dividends, coupon, right? This is what we're really starting to get into and get serious about. And if you look at the history of alternatives, alternative investing, there was basically, up until very recently, there was basically no interest in anything besides, debt financing, private credit, right? Maybe some private equity, some real estate, some hedge funds. But institutional investors had basically no interest in buying a whole bunch of wine or artwork, right? Maybe a few alpha-seeking hedge funds got into the space, but for the most part, it's all based on private equity and private debt, right? Buying companies or lending, essentially just modern lending, right? So that is a huge part of what we're doing. Is we're looking now and we're looking to create yield producing, cash flow producing investments, even when they don't exist, even when the general usual play is just an appreciation play. So I'll give you a good example of this. There is a company we're working with right now called the Car Crowd in the UK. And their entire MO is that they buy Ferraris in the UK that are left-hand drive Ferraris, right? There's a little bit of arbitrage there because they drive on the left. So the steering wheel's on the right in the UK, right? So if you buy these left-hand drive Ferraris, you can actually get them at a discount in the UK. There's a little bit of arb there now. There's a little bit of arbitrage if you sell them in the US. So this company basically does exactly that. They buy up these cars in the UK and they sell them in the US, and they also wait about 3 years and kind of let them appreciate, right? So you've got an appreciation play happening, and you've got an arbitrage play happening. Okay. So we are working with them now, and we're bringing a whole new vehicle. This is our latest vehicle through Altea, which we'll get into in a bit. But the latest vehicle is basically, we're kind of taking the appreciation out of the equation. We're saying we don't really care about the appreciation. Frankly, we don't even care about Ferraris for that level, for that matter. We want to just basically be buying up left-hand drive vehicles in the UK, using the ARB to sell them in the States, and then turning that into cash flow, turning that into dividends, right? That's kind of the approach we're taking now. It's totally novel. It's never been done, right? This is why we exist. So that kind of shows our evolution, a little bit in terms of how we think about alternative investing and the emphasis and importance that we put on cash flow generating assets.
Oh, thank you for that. And that's a huge gem for those who didn't know. A lot of arbitrage plays are very lucrative in terms of the amount of cash flow that you can make from doing that. So that's just one example. And I want to say, as far as partnering with Wyatt, who you mentioned before, and him bringing that complementary background, how would you say that shaped the vision, the strategic vision, and the day-to-day leadership of Alt, especially, now with this new arbitration play and all of the other things that you have going on and expanding into? I'm guessing you could probably do that with his collectibles and that focus that he has too. So could you explain a little bit more about that too?
I think Wyatt's basically a genius, if you ask me, man. He's, he really just thinks about the world of finance so differently than most people do. And his mind is around how can we securitize this, right? There's kind of a securitization, macro theme going on here. Some people call it the financialization of everything. Other people call it the democratization of investing. I fundamentally hate that word, democratization. It doesn't make sense. This isn't a democracy. We're not voting on it works in some places, but if I hear democratization one more time, I'm gonna lose my shit, right? So, but there is something happening with the financialization of everything, the securitization of everything. I fundamentally think that's totally normal and fine. I think a lot of people don't understand it and they're maybe scared of it, but it's actually not that tough of a concept once you get into it. But it can be tricky to kind of figure out how to securitize different assets, and especially to securitize them in a way that produces cash flow. Wyatt is just fundamentally great at that. And, he sees opportunities like that in a way that I wouldn't. And that's kind of really what he brings to the table, things that I couldn't do myself. Or, I told him once, man, he sent me an idea once for, I won't get into what it is, but I remember telling him man, I could live 5 lifetimes and just not come to that conclusion that you just came to, right? And on the other hand, there's things in areas that he's not as good at. And I kind of fill in the gaps there. Right. And so we work together very well in that way. But yeah, a lot of the forward thinking securitization of assets that we're doing now is from Wyatt's brain. Absolutely.
Okay, I appreciate that. And speaking about, democracy, policy, and all of that stuff, how would you say? I know you've talked about like regulatory shifts in fintech and alternatives and all of that as well. Even talking about the NFT crisis and even music and the AI things going on right now. What would you say present the biggest opportunities or threats to Altea and Altco's strategy in terms of alternative investing moving forward?
I don't think there's a whole lot of threats right now. I think if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said that the advent of US Regulation A plus, which is basically, for those who don't know, a part of the Jobs Act, which allows for and enables easier securitization of basically any asset, right? And allows that securitization to be sold to non-accredited investors. Okay. It's a really big deal for America, and it's a really big deal for the world because so many countries follow America's lead in so many areas of finance. So now all of a sudden, you've got this opportunity to securitize assets, sell them legally to non-accredited investors. And it sounds great in theory. I still love the theory. The problem is the reality of Regulation A plus is that the economics are they can be brutal. Right. So to be clear, we've never ourselves issued Reg A offerings, nor do we have the legal right to. Okay. But what we saw happening was when we first started alts, we thought that was going to be like a huge part of what we do, is really just focus on non-accredited investors and this new democratization that's happening. And between the rough economics of the actual production side of these, actually bring these securities to life, and between that and the demand side weakness, I would call it, with non-accredited investors, it kind of created a come to Jesus moment for us where we're like, look, I love the promise of Regulation A. I don't love the actual world of it. It's actually kind of brutal. And a lot of companies have gone out of business, suffering from high overhead, high bureaucratic costs, low investments per investor, right? Like the average Reg A offering, probably gets a median investment of like $250. That's not a lot of money, right? A $250 investment, even, like if you multiply it by like 1,000, it's just not that much money. And you have to service all of those customers. You have to service all of those investors, and you're not making anything off of it, really. That's not a great situation. So it's unfortunate that the economics aren't great because it's holding back the progress of Regulation A. So to answer your question, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said Regulation A. Okay. Now I would say, especially with Trump and the Trump administration, I think crypto is definitely having a resurgence. For all of the bullshit that crypto has brought the world, there is a fundamental gravity to it that cannot and should not be ignored. It will not go away. Stable coins are a tremendous movement that's happening. That is the normalization of a new type of financial rails for the whole world. And it's so global. That's the thing that I think people, especially in America, forget, is just how global crypto is, right? Like when you travel the world, man, you realize this is the common financial glue for the whole world. And say what you will about President Biden and this and that, but for all of the crap crypto brings, I do think the Trump administration generally, opening up crypto in a greater way is fundamentally good. It can be tough to see it that way because there's so much grifting, including with the president himself, which is a whole other topic we won't get into. But if you can put that aside, I know it's a big if, it does lead to a lot of the openness of crypto in the world. I think does open up a lot of great investing opportunities and a lot of bad ones. And we'll be squarely in the middle analyzing both. That's what we do. So I would say, to answer your question, I would say crypto definitely presents the biggest, really, opportunity of our lifetime, frankly.
Okay. And thank you for that. We will leave it there. If Michael, you don't have anything for Stefan after that?
Excited for this next segment.
Okay. Well, with that being said, Stefan, thank you again. You've dropped so much knowledge, and we appreciate the ideas and the concepts that you're able to provide our audience and us, and really just open our eyes to the world of alternative investments and understanding the regulations as far as that goes, as well as just really understanding how your partnership and the ideas that brings to you and the alts and the Altea group, has really, made you guys prosper and become, the platform that you guys are today. So congrats, hats off to you guys for that. And, again, even just real quick, just talking on the Regulation A and Regulation CF too, to your point, a lot of the companies that went through that, even when my company Upfront was trying to go through that process, it's very prohibitive to making sure that a lot of companies get to fruition and figure out what their product looks like, because there's a lot of red tape that you have to go through, a lot of money that has to be dropped even before you make a dollar or even have people invest. So, there's a lot of things that are wrong with the system, but now that, the SEC seems to be a little bit more favorable, there's new leadership in charge and all of that, for better or for worse, things seem to be looking up for the entire community. And I think that, as a whole, that seems to be what we have to keep an eye on, moving forward as far as new opportunities in this space and, the potential money that could be made from this. So with that being said, we'll be getting into our next segment very shortly. This has been a great segment of Why Y'all Working. I'm one of your hosts, Alairé.
I'm Michael Ogunsanya.
And Stefan, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.